Good morning, wrestling fans, and welcome to PWR today. Hey, Wednesday morning, it's February 9th, 2022. The man they call Meathead and the M.O.T.S. M.O.T.S. Not the applesauce kind, but the M.O.T.S. Matthew Thomas. Matthew, good morning.
I think we need to copyright that gimmick. I hear that it's making its rounds, and I don't like it. I mean, we've got intellectual property here, and I think we need to keep it that way. So if there are any interns, if there are any patented lawyers out there that are looking for an internship.
We need to find that wrestling lawyer. Remember him?
Yeah. That's a cool dude. I think he'd be all over that.
One that was working with all those AEW guys to get all their stuff locked up.
Yeah, but I guess you technically can't patent something that's already technical intellectual property because it's another company.
Right, so it's another company's applesauce.
Yeah, but you know, I mean, doesn't hurt us from trying.
What Matthew's talking about is the Fat and Furious version of Busted Open with Tommy Dreamer and Bully Ray. Again, I try not to listen as much only because I don't want it to infect what I'm going to have as far as opinion. There's one other thing we're going to get to real quick, which is the Briscoe interview off of that show as well. But it opened up with Tommy eating applesauce. He had the M.O.T.S. Yeah.
You know, I don't want it to infect me either, but my goodness, I mean, how many wrestling podcasts out there can talk about M.O.T.S. applesauce?
Well, apparently there's two, and we were the first, huh?
Yeah, I guess we're the first for something.
All right. Who's the first to tell us about today's sponsors? Is it you or me? I think it's going to be you.
That would be I. And our sponsors are Collar and Elbow, maker of fine wrestling apparel, available exclusively at collarandelbowbrand.com. Head over to their URL, their website, their link, if you will. Save yourself a big fat chunk of 10% off when you enter promo code LINDAKay, LINDAKAY, for that 10% off savings that you can use to buy yourself a new web browser.
The reason I want to bring up the Briscoe interview from the Busted Open show with the Fat and Furious Tommy and Bully is the Briscoes are awesome. I think I told you this off air, but I'll bring it on air. I love listening to Briscoes talk, but it takes me about 5 minutes to listen to them to understand what they're saying and to be able to kind of, fine tune and tweak my ears to their dialect, because for the first couple minutes, I don't understand what the frick they're saying.
Yeah, they're Kentucky, right?
Possibly Kentucky, maybe Alabama, somewhere down there, but they are Southern boys.
Yeah, I don't think they talk perfectly fine. I don't see anything that's wrong with that. I mean,
I told you, my northern ears, it takes me a little bit to fine tune my ears. It's like, if you drive away from a radio station, you got to maybe tune the dial a little bit. But once you start understanding them, I can tell the difference between Mark and Jay, and they are a pleasure to listen to in any interview they've ever done. The big line that just, I don't like to use industry terms, but the big line that just popped me huge, and I'm laughing driving my car listening to this, was that it was definitely Jay yelling to Tony Khan, "Hey man, shit or get off the pot." You ever heard that, man? I mean, if those boys can get their permission slip signed, we can go to this Crockett Cup and we can have FTR and Briscoe boys.
Fantastic. I mean, it's proper King's English as far as
shit or get off the pot.
As I'm concerned. Now, just to clarify, these are the Briscoes with the chicken farm, not the body shop, correct?
No, these are the chicken farmers. Reach for the sky, boy.
There you go. And you got to think it's only a matter of time.
And they are straight up chicken farmers. That is not a gimmick, folks. That is life.
There's only a matter. I mean, they're shoot chicken farmers, is what you're saying.
They're not shoot chicken farmers. They're chicken farmers.
No,
they're not chicken lovers.
They don't shoot chickens, but I mean shoot like as in real, like real.
And
real
literally during the interview, they were calling him on the way to the dump to go get more stuff for the chickens.
Yeah. No, that's what you got to do when you're farming chickens. And my goodness, you got to think it's only a matter of time before we see them. It wouldn't be a forbidden door at that point, but before we see them walk into AEW.
Yeah, and having Jay yell out to Tony, "Shit or get off the pot, let's go." We only do big time matches, man. So get it signed. Could they be walking through that forbidden door tonight or in the coming weeks before Revolution?
It just depends on what the term forbidden door means anymore. Tony clarified last week that the forbidden door, it basically means someone working with another promotion. And I guess that still holds true I don't know though, because it depends on how technical you want to get and how technical you consider the ROH deals now, which nobody's really operating with a contract, correct?
Yeah, I think they let all the contracts go, and I think they're going to start everybody fresh off.
Here's the thing. We might, it might be jumping ahead a little bit, but with everything that's going on and with Tony's Twitter statements, I think it's going to be much talked about, whatever it is, but I have a concern that he has set himself up for a little bit of disappointment if it's anybody other than an active roster or what is perceived as an active roster WWE individual.
So Khan has also said, quote, "I have created some debate about what it means to open the forbidden door, and that's what we are going to do on this show," unquote. Khan told Sports Illustrated that he sees his crowded roster as a positive and one that will benefit AEW both long and short term. He also likes the interactions that provide backstage, using Bryan Danielson working with TBS champion Jade Cargill. And that's kind of what I wanted to lead into here. Tony has asked Bryan to work with Jade Cargill as a coach, even though, Bryan is still working, at, Bryan Danielson. He's still working matches, and he might have a thing going on with Moxley here, but he's kind of working backstage with Jade Cargill.
Great decision. And I think Jade is one of those people that a lot of people see a huge, huge upside there. It's different than what AEW is that company that are pretty much putting belts on and rewarding the workers, the people that are acknowledged as seasoned individuals. Yeah. Jade's a little bit of a different move for a company the likes of AEW. Jade's title reign and the decision to go with Jade is much more of a WWE perceived move than AEW traditionally makes. I don't think it's a bad move. I think the fact that they're saying, okay, we've got her working with one of the top people in the industry, that is going to give her a lot of wiggle room as far as perception goes. I think it's a great idea, and I think Jade is one of those people you have to take that gamble on. She passes the airport test.
I knew you were going to go there. Absolutely.
Yeah, more so probably than anybody who's holding a belt in that company right
now. Okay. And folks, the airport test, Matthew, one more time.
If you can get through security at the airport, like you'll be trying to do
here
in a few short months. No, airport or any type of social setting, you see somebody and you say, man, that person must be somebody. Who is that? You're seeing somebody who is an athlete or a star in some capacity.
Right. They walk through and they just don't look like a regular ham and egger. They walk through and they look like a star of the airport test. But Tony says, and we kind of touched on it with Linda yesterday. Tony has said that, who debuts tonight on Dynamite against Isaiah Cassidy will set him up for tonight, set him up for Friday as well. And to be honest, Tony Khan, unlike Dixie, and this isn't a shot at Dixie Carter at all, but remember Dixie Carter's, I have a big announcement, whatever, and they were always like Claire Lynch. They were just terrible announcements. Tony is not disappointed.
No, he hasn't. And I think with him doubling down like this, it's something big. You guys floated Jeff Hardy. I think that's a strong possibility. With him going up against Isaiah Cassidy, that builds in the whole dynamic with Matt there, and Matt potentially not knowing this was going to happen. So when you're talking about this
with the AHFO, right?
Yeah, Meathead, that's probably the safest bet at this point. It really is, because it kind of checks that WWE box to a certain extent, and also looking at what Tony Khan said as far as wanting to slam the door on their former company. Now there's, a little bit of suspense as far as how Jeff left and this, that, and the other. And yep. Here's the thing.
Technically, Jeff Hardy would have been in a Hall of Fame if he would have just ate that, shit sandwich and just took what they gave him.
It's probably the safest bet, and that's the way that I'm leaning towards. Now, I wonder, had we not had all of the hoopla in the last 2 weeks with Shane McMahon, if we would have Tony,
Shane McMahon All Elite,
if we'd have Tony playing it up like this. I think part of what's happening is Tony trying to play up that speculation. Could it be Shane? It's most likely not, but it it still technically could be. I don't think that's something that AEW really, that's a route they necessarily really go. I mean, getting talent is one thing, getting the boss's son, although it might be perceived as a huge take, I don't think they would necessarily want to throw a
that as Shane
McMahon.
McMahon playing AEW and getting in there and giving back information to WWE.
Yeah. I don't think it's a move they'd make, and you just got to look at what they would do, business sense. And I don't think that's, with the wording and everything that's been spoken, the Jeff Hardy thing is the most likely. Now, another option, I mean, Forbidden Door basically more or less in the past has been New Japan. So there is a strong possibility that you have
Impact Wrestling. That's where the Forbidden Door started.
Yeah. There's a strong possibility there that you've got, some crossover talent there, and it very well might likely be a New Japan talent where you have a lot of not even just casual fans, but a lot of seasoned stateside wrestling fans. And wait a minute, who's that? I've heard the name, but who's that?
All right. Matthew, before we get into NXT from last night, you were at Raw on Monday night in the ball. You had a ball at the show?
It was fun. WWE's always fun being there. We were fortunate to be really, really close to the ring, the closest that I have probably ever set for a Raw. So just, being able to see everybody up close and being that close to the action was fun. I mean, the big thing for last night, the big takeaway, and you got to talk crowd there and you got to talk the TV show that we were in the studio for, because they're two different things.
Right.
The crowd there, they were most excited to see their hometown hero. The reception for Bobby Lashley sounded great in the arena. I was really, really happy when I went back and watched the TV portion that it came across really, really good on TV as well too. Placement of it was strange. My feel last night from being there live, as far as a live crowd goes, maybe not as much for the TV crowd, which is what they were going for, but I think there was a way to kind of satisfy both of them that I'm not sure they really did last night. Bobby came out there at about 35 minutes after the top of the hour. You had your two segments. You'd had your game show segment. You'd had your tag team match. And then you had Bobby, not even at the top of an hour segment. It was weird. Yeah, it was a great reaction. The crowd was behind it. To me, that was the peak of the crowd right there. You had Bobby, and then that flowed into the AJ Styles match and the championship contender match where your champion loses clean on TV. The crowd was really, really behind AJ. That was, I can't say it was a huge surprise, but, basically you've got him going against your very, oddly booked Damian Priest at the time. There was actually a chant last night, not a chant, but a loud noise from the crowd that came out of my mouth to Damian Priest that simply said, "I don't know how to feel about you." And I think that echoed a lot of the sentiment, with this Priest booking. It's like this Jekyll and Hyde thing. You've really kind of made a very kind of strange gray area with somebody you were trying to portray.
I know that we talked about Busted Open. I know you said you only listened to the first 30 minutes, but they went into that in detail. And this is not a news story. This is something that we've been talking about WWE for multiple years. We don't know how to feel about what they do because it's never clean cut. They have too much living in the gray.
Yeah.
I had said that Bobby Lashley being in a hometown, said maybe, and I said this on the show yesterday, maybe they gave him the AEW treatment and let him be the hometown hero, come home. But he was a heel the week before because they were clearly cheering for Brock.
Yeah.
And now they're cheering for Bobby.
Yeah.
Do we cheer for Damian or do we don't cheer for him? Do we cheer for Kevin Owens or do we not cheer for Kevin Owens?
The shades of gray stuff can work at times, but it's not going to work in WWE booking. And let me tell you this. We've talked about this on the air with what you can visibly see. I mean, that crowd last night, and maybe it's different in different areas, but this was my first Raw that I've attended since 2013. I mean, of course, they had to be accompanied by, people to drive them there and adults, but 75, 80% young child crowd there.
But
I
that's
mean,
okay. I mean, any kind of business needs that.
It's okay, but with your booking, when you do not have clearly defined baby faces and heels, and you have all this gray area stuff, that's not the type of demographic that you do it for. And so
it's not who you do it for, right?
Yeah, it's just it leads to a further just kind of mudding of the waters. But as far as takeaway, as far as being in attendance last night, I have loved
on Monday night, you mean, right?
Yeah, and Monday night, 2 nights ago. I've loved what they've done with Alpha Academy, Riddle, and Orton. Oh my goodness, having that as the opening segment last night,
I thought it was long, but it was entertaining.
It kills the live crowd, especially Monday night, because you're relying so much on the board, with the answers and whatnot, and on the floor, the way that Ball Arena, and I assume most arenas are set up. Your big video board up top, it's too, that's meant more for the lower levels and the upper decks. Sure. On the floor, you're having to turn around and look at the board there, and just I think that would have been I think you could have moved that to, the top of the second hour, and you would have been able to let that crowd get hot. I mean,
What did Chad Gable get over at the end with the yelling with the buzzer? Oh my God, it was hilarious.
It's an entertaining spot that you could use to come down from something, and I don't know that they ever really regained that momentum in that crowd after that last night. After that Monday night, I'm sorry, so confusing of my days
you kept
here.
Hearing Otis yell ham.
Mm-hmm.
Ham.
And here's the other thing. My big takeaway and the big disappointment for Monday night was that, and I know there's some people out there in TV land too, Raw had given us a couple of days ahead of time as far as what to expect on the show. And the main advertised match was, for the first time ever, Seth Rollins and Riddle. And you could not deliver on that. You start the match with, 30, 25 minutes at the top of the hour, DQ, and then a tag match. You just and
let me ask you this, Matthew. Mm-hmm. Were they doing the Frank Cosentino, the Cos temperature check on Riddle in a main event?
Yeah, I don't know, but here's the thing: the finish, if I'm not mistaken, was Rollins pinning Riddle, which you could have done. Hey, you don't want. And here's the thing: whatever outcome would have happened there, nobody would have been hurt, because you have both of those guys in the chamber. Most likely, neither one of those guys walking away from the chamber with the title. So this match was interesting in the fact that it was never before done. You could have had a clean finish. You could have had Rollins go over Riddle, but just the bait and switch that you could not even deliver that. And then, of course, the dark match that I guess was advertised in local media was Becky and Bianca after the TV stopped. And of course, this was a title match, so you knew there was not going to be a clean finish there. Count-out finish, with Bianca winning and Becky retaining. So you close it out the way you do on TV, and then you also close it out with a DQ, with a count-out finish for the crowd. WWE just it was fun to be there in the presence of that. Everybody in the ring working really hard, top level athletes. But my goodness, it was just it was not booked in any capacity for the fans that were there, not just for the sake of being there to see the superstars. The fans that actually wanted something memorable or for some storyline to progress. Here's in all reality where you're at right now in WWE. Unless you're at a pay-per-view, or unless you are at that first Raw and SmackDown after a pay-per-view where you're resetting for the next pay-per-view and pretty much setting what's going to go in those next 3 or 4 weeks, you're most likely not going to get a big needle-moving show. And that's basically kind of where Monday night in Denver fell.
All right, let's move on to NXT from last night. And Matthew had opened up with one of the 2 semifinal matches. Grizzled young veterans taking on the Creed brothers. I thought this was GYV, and it ended up being CREED, the Creed brothers, with the win.
Well, hey, I mean, good to see somebody else in the finals this year, and I think that it's it was perhaps a surprise here, perhaps a bit of an upset, and I like that non-predictable booking, and that's kind of what my critique was from Monday Night's Raw, and that's NXT, as much as it's departed from the gold and black and gold, they still can throw some surprises out there, and there still seems to be, some effort into not always making it that predictable. And I think we're going to get to a segment a little later on from last night too that really showcased that.
So Amari Miller and Wendy Chu had a match last week, Sleepy Pajama Lady. And the match was all for playing for Tiffany Stratton's credit card. Well, Wendy Chu wins, took the card. Amari didn't win, but they went out shopping anyway on the card. The believability of this segment drove me insane because the announcer said until it got canceled. If it was canceled, how did they go a week shopping with it?
Yeah, I know.
If you lost your credit card, didn't you cancel it right? This drove me nuts. But Tiffany Stratton took on Wendy Choo Choo, and Tiffany Stratton won to get her revenge, even though Wendy Choo Choo, she had bags full of stuff that Dakota Kai was looking at.
And Wendy Choo won. Wendy Choo won last week, correct?
Wendy Choo won last week.
So you've got more 50-50 booking, as you did on, and that was another thing. I mean, Monday, not to keep going back to Monday in Denver, but you had like a wide variety pack of so many things that WWE does that's non-effective. You had that with Theory and KO as well too. I mean, one person winning one week, one person winning the next week. So nobody's ever progressing. I know rankings don't exist there, but nobody is ever climbing.
Nobody's believable ahead to be the stronger person over the other.
No, in the perceived rankings.
Yeah. Draco Anthony was approached by Joe Gacy in Harland, and he says you don't have to do it alone. Like he wants to make him his young boy. It was kind of weird. But Pete Dunne took on Draco Anthony, and I'm done with NXT. And the new kid's going, gee whiz, sir. I'm so excited to wrestle you on TV, sir. I'm done with that. This show annoys the hell out of me right now.
It's a different monster, man. It's a different.
Gee golly, wrestling on TV? Wow. I'm the new kid, but I'll do good.
Yeah, I mean, I go back to it having, a little bit of a era of FCW or OVW being televised, but not televised on USA or Sci-Fi nationally. Basically a WWE feeder system with some local TV. And that's in a lot of ways what I feel like they're doing in certain segments, except they're doing it in front of a national audience.
LA Knight took on Senga, and LA Knight, still an amazing, great talent. I don't like the name or the music. The helmet thing that he has in his looks like a trash can. Yeah, I'm sorry. The announcers allegedly say that, well, at least, Waller dropped the restraining order. I think that was a goof, because later on in the night, you're going to hear that Grayson Waller never dropped a restraining order. And next week on St. Valentine's Day, Vengeance Day, that he's going to get LA Knight arrested, which I'd like the continuation of that story. That one doesn't bother me.
Yeah. We'll see where it goes. I mean, I think a lot of what they've done with Waller is to, have LA Knight come in and ultimately defeat the guy that everybody's sick of. So, it seemed like a really, really strong weekly push there for a while. It was involving AJ Styles and this, that, and the other. Yep. But if the end game is to ultimately, get LA Knight over, I think it might be worth it.
Okay, this is a championship summit. Here's Legado del Fantasma in the ring. Santos Escobar with Elektra Lopez, Joaquin Wilde, and Raul Mendoza. Here comes the champion after the music. But he's here to show the world. He's here to show the world. Come on! Dolph Ziggler has come out. Then Tommaso Ciampa comes out. And luckily it happened, right? But I'm asking myself, if you're Santos Escobar, why aren't you going, what the hell is going on here? This is about me. Yeah. But he did eventually say it.
Yeah, I like this. This felt like a genuine surprise to me. And we look at people that have kind of gone down to NXT here recently just for little cameos. AJ Styles, Riddle. I think if they play their cards right, I think that Ziggler is
And Balor
somebody.
did it for a year.
Yeah, and I'm talking about people who've done it, for a couple of weeks, not that, but I mean, even if Ziggler was down there more than a couple of weeks, I think he is somebody who could largely benefit from it. Not in the fact that he needs to go down there and hone his craft or anything, but the fact of being the
down there to give him some star rub.
Yeah, him being that big star and giving him a run with that NXT title. I think that people would believe it and people would enjoy it. And I think that is an opportunity they don't do near enough of, is that NXT reset. I mean, you have to look no further than Mandy Rose. Mandy Rose has absolutely rejuvenated her career. And I think the perception of a Mandy Rose when she ultimately does come back to the main roster is going to be light years above of where it was at. And that's the thing with that main roster, man, is there is so much middle murky water for people to fall into and just float for years without any significant push or any significant storyline.
What? Don't call me
float. Yeah, like just their heads above the water. Maybe they got those little swimmies on or hanging onto a raft or something. But and I say that, Meathead, and the sad thing is when you stop and think about it, outside of maybe a handful of people, that's pretty much where everybody's at on the main roster.
Yep, because there's no credible contenders. And Mandy, I mean, you got to love her titles. They showcase them every week.
Yeah.
Sarai versus Dakota Kai. Apparently that necklace that she wears changes her outfit when she goes outside, and that's cool. Whatever. Sarai wins, and she looked really strong as far as a wrestler, right? I don't want to disparage her. I have to ask, though, the North American champion Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams, as they're hanging out at the barbershop, was this stuff meant for Hit Row?
That was the vibe that I got.
Like, they had this stuff that they were going to do it, and now they're just doing it for them. And this is nothing against Trick Williams or Carmelo Hayes, but I mean that WWE vibe there, like they're just going to put the next person into that thing they already had planned.
Yeah. No, I mean this could very well have been something that was in the future for them, and it's like, oh, you know what, we got that cool thing that we planned out, so let's do it with these guys.
Another semifinals, MSK taking on Malik Blade and Idris Sanofe, and MSK is in the finals for 2 years in a row, and they're looking to go back to back.
Yeah, well, we've got a story there, looking
MSK
for back to back,
brothers,
and looking for these young up and comers to these little young whippersnappers to stop them.
There you go. Ironically, because MSK's name in Impact Wrestling was the Young Rascals.
Yeah, just subliminally just do all kinds of stuff, don't it?
Hey, you get a vignette on Cameron Grimes, showing walking through his hometown in Burlington, North Carolina. It's a nice place to grow up, but you know what? He had to work through everything, and he's a self-made man. Nice little promo that they go, because especially after Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams, kind of ran him down at the barbershop. So they're gonna have their title match, and then finally the main event: Kaylee Ray and Mandy Rose for the NXT Women's title. Mandy Rose wins, but there was a little side segment where Io Shirai and Zoe Stark were trying to figure out a partner for Shirai because Zoe's not ready to compete in the Women's Dusty Cup, and I think she's found it. I think Io Shirai and Kaylee Ray might take a run at the Dusty Cup.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, the storyline comes together nice. I mean, I don't think Mandy was any danger of losing here. She's a really, really strong champion. So I think they, moved the storyline along here and did a good job doing that.
Fair enough. Well, we did a good job of talking wrestling on a Wednesday morning. Tonight on Dynamite, 8 Eastern, 7 Central, Isaiah Cassidy takes on the mystery opponent. Do they open the show with it? Do they save it for the top of the hour? I think they open the show with it.
I think they open the show with it and look for Isaiah Cassidy to be beat quickly by Triple H.
It's all over the game, man. How to steal it? Are we saying Jeff Hardy? Are we making it official right here, right now?
That's with everything that we've got. everything that would make sense and everything Tony Khan said.
Because you know who it's not going to be, because we saw a video of him signing his contract, right? He's the boogeyman. And he's coming to get you. Just signed a WWE contract, as we saw on Twitter.
Yeah. Jeff Hardy's my safest bet at this point, because I think who he is, Keith Lee.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind that. I mean, I think Keith Lee is the bigger news story. In the fact that
Jeff Hardy's okay, we understand it, we get it, and then we move on.
Yeah. Keith Lee is the bigger news story. I think the reason that I'm going more Jeff Hardy is because that's not as cut and dry. With the way he left and slamming the door on your former company, this, that, and the other. Keith Lee's pretty much cut and dry there. But hey, I'm happy. I'm happy with that. I'm happy with
it not being Claire Lynch. That's all that matters.
Maybe it's Dixie.
She doesn't work anywhere right now in wrestling, technically.
You know what?
Unless she has a job at Anthem.
I enjoyed.
Her nephew's doing okay.
I enjoyed Dixie and EC3 paired together. So if you bring out Dixie with EC3 and we get EC3,
well, who's controlling the narrative? But that's another story, another day, another show.
Or I mean, maybe it's Adam Shearer and EC3, because that's technically a different company now, right? I mean, that could still check the Forbidden Door boxes.
It could. Well, we'll talk about it all tomorrow morning. So for Matthew Thomas, the man they call Meathead, hey, thanks for stopping by. We will talk about it tomorrow morning. So long, everyone.